have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name is Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. Welcome to it, everyone. I hope you're having a fantastic week. Of course, it'll be another interview edition of Real Estate Realities tomorrow on Friday. In that show, our guest will be Mr. Aaron Hendon, real estate agent from the Seattle area, who will give us some great insights into that marketplace and talk a little bit more just kind of about his insights. I think it'll be very useful for everybody. I was interested simply because, as all of you know, I moved my son up to that area recently. So getting his insights into that market, I think, is interesting. And plus, I think Seattle is one of those areas to keep an eye on, right? In terms of looking for those markets that could be transitional. Ones where when we start to see changes there, we might start wanting to worry about changes in other segments of the real estate market outside of Seattle, right? So it was one of the... I'm not sure it is yet. It hasn't always been on my list. In fact, it hasn't been, but it might just end up being one of the canaries in the coal mine, right? We've talked about other communities that I like to keep an eye on, places like Las Vegas, Phoenix, places where when things start going a little bit wonky, San Francisco, New York, those types of places, just to kind of get a clue where when really strong markets start to weaken, what can the rest of us expect under those circumstances? So make sure to tune in. You won't want to miss that interview. Today's show is a little bit different, but still in the theme of giving you more value in terms of the information that you're going to walk away with than the time that you invest. This is me pointing towards another resource called Biggerpockets.com. I've been a member there since, I don't know, it's been maybe a year or two. And my primary use for Biggerpockets has not been really where it should be, frankly, in terms of the tools it offers, in terms of the things and the support it offers. I haven't taken enough advantage of it. So I thought what I would do is run down real quickly what Biggerpockets is about. You're going to find that like many other places where folks who want to get into investing congregate, you're going to find a lot of deadwood. And this is just the reality. And it's not because they are intentionally deadwood. We've talked about this on the show a lot. The thing stopping you from succeeding in real estate or in whatever you're doing, I don't care if it's real estate or wood carving or ditch digging or whatever it is, whatever you're not succeeding at, honestly, you have to own the problem. You can't say, I'm failing because of somebody else. If you're failing because you perceive somebody else is doing something, then you need to figure out how you can make that person act differently, how you can interact with them to change how they treat you. Now, I don't know of a business I've ever been involved in where a single individual has that much control over my success. So that's not likely to be a real scenario you're going to hit. But for the money, now I'm a pro level member of Biggerpockets. I think the cost, if I'm reading this correctly, the price per year for a pro membership for a year is $232. So it's basically about $30 a month. Or at least that's what they show here. They show $29 per month. If you want to go with a plus membership, that's $9 a month, $90 per year. And to be honest, I don't know what the difference is. I don't know what you don't get as a result of being a plus member, but you can also be a basic member to take it for a test drive for free and see how it feels. But let me just suggest that, and of course, I get tons of people pointing me towards things that are designed to be something you pay for to achieve success in real estate. These folks did not come to me and say, hey, we'd really love for you to promote Biggerpockets. So I'm doing this because I organically found them, liked what they were doing, and joined in. And here's what got me hooked first. They do online seminars, courses all the time. And I love listening to him, even when it's stuff I feel like I really know, because I almost always walk away with one or two nuggets that I didn't have before. Brandon is your guy who's primarily doing these presentations, but there are several others who do them as well. And as a pro member, I'm not sure if you get access to it as a plus member. So you'll need to go and look and see what level of membership you're comfortable with, including the free level. But there's an archive of all kinds of great videos on how to get started, what to do. And today we're going to focus on a couple of things, because they came out with an interesting story today that I think is worth sharing. But they're going to give you all kinds of great tools, ranging from advice, suggestions, step-by-steps of how to push through and do what you need to do to be successful. They're going to give you tons of tools like calculators, how to analyze a property as a rental or as a BRRRR property. And that's what we're really going to focus on today. We're going to focus on the BRRRR strategy, and more importantly, the BARRRR strategy, which was an interesting story that came out today, and I'm kind of hot to share it with you. So to start everything off, let me first suggest that regardless of your level of interest, that you at least go on over to biggerpockets.com. So it's all one word, biggerpockets.com. And check it out. I'm on there. If you can go, and I'm not sure at the basic level of subscription what you can do in terms of accessing the forums and whatnot, but please do look for me. I believe if you search for Rebel Broker or Robert Whitelaw or any of those things, you'll find me. I'm on there. I haven't been as active, but I'm looking to get more active because I'm impressed with what they offer. And they have their own podcast. So, in terms of me not wanting to turn you on to things that would compete with me, it's goofy of me to do this, but I think they put together a good product, and it's absolutely worth your time. And the podcasts they do are free. So really the only things you're paying for are things that, are going to be very, very supportive of your goals. Now, if you can't do the $232 a year, I'm going to suggest that you at least do the Plus program, the $90 a year, because it'll be the best money you've ever invested. In terms of the amount of, and I mentioned deadwood before, in terms of the amount of deadwood that you're going to encounter, it's much lower than other forums. Because there is a bit of a barrier to entry to get involved with this forum, you tend to get folks who are a little bit more serious. You're still going to get the folks who really, in their heart, want to get somewhere, but just aren't gonna, right? There's always those folks who, for whatever reason, just lose it at some point and don't move forward and don't take it seriously enough. But you're going to find that that's going to be a lot less of a problem here. But you're going to be able to go on there and discuss intelligently things like where to get financing, where to get hard money, when you don't want to go conventional or when you can't go conventional. And you're going to get real world, down-to-earth advice from guys who do this stuff. Now, Brandon, who I mentioned a minute ago, who has done most of the online courses that really seminars sort of that I've been involved with, or that I've listened to, he actually does this. This is what he does. Not the shows. He does the shows for Biggerpockets, but he is an investor. He owns properties. He does this. So you're getting feedback. You're getting information and insights from someone who does this every day. So I think that's super valuable to be able to potentially interact with people who are doing this all the time. And what's great is you'll be able to find folks local to you. Maybe you'll get an opportunity to go out to coffee with them and shake hands and get to know people. I've met a couple of people through this. So far I'm not batting real well on encountering people where we mesh in terms of what we can offer one another or what we're doing, or, how serious someone is about moving to that next level. So that hasn't worked out yet, but I'm still optimistic, and I'll still keep pushing for that. But I'd encourage you to check it out. Now, here's where I wanted to start, because this is something that they offer, right up front, in terms of advice, and it's their BRRRR strategy. Some of you may have heard of this before. I think I've mentioned it in passing before, but I wanted to give you a little bit more of a rundown on it. Now, of course, there'll be a link to biggerpockets.com in the show notes for today's show. And for any other articles that I mentioned, I'll include links. I can't guarantee they'll take you to the exact page I'm seeing, simply because obviously I'm a member. So there may be a paywall there, but hopefully not. Hopefully you'll be able to see everything. All right, so let's jump in. first, let's talk about terms. BRRRR, right? It's just a way to remember something. And it's really just a way of writing down as a specific formula something that I think everyone's been doing since before this was sort of laid out by Brandon. But it's good to remember it, right? To separate things into chunks that then you can subdivide into actions you're specifically taking, right? So the BRRRR strategy stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. It's absolutely a strategy, so I don't want to minimize Brandon's sort of laying down this strategy, but let's sort of run through what that means. Buy obviously means purchase a property. Now, before you buy, all your homework that we've talked about, and there's tons of it, right? Analyzing metro areas or being drawn to certain areas based on certain data. The data we shared yesterday is a good example of that. The data we share all the time on the show is a good example. Whatever area has caught your eye because certain stats show that it's going to be growing over the next year, or you've learned something about an area you're interested in that a new business is going to move in. I mean, who knows where Amazon's going to open their next factory, right? Or their next warehouse, whatever. Or you have listened to interviews here on this show and you're now convinced you can take on Detroit and ride the wave of improving markets in Detroit. You need to do all that homework before you buy, right? In fact, before you can go on to the first R in this list, you should have added another R before the B, and that's research. Because in order to know what you're going to be doing for that rehab, and in order to know that you're buying the property correctly, you need to have done enough research to know, A, what rehab work you're going to do and what that rehab work is going to cost you, right? So, and of course, you can also do that during the buying phase. So when you're buying, you have that several weeks period of time, usually it's 17 days period of time for you to do your research and due diligence. Now, why not do that? All right, boy, I'm muddling this all together. So first of all, you want to get into contract and lock it in, right? So you don't want to waste a lot of time. Once you've decided that you're interested in a property and that the numbers in general work, and from what you can see, everything's good, you want to get into contract. And of course, in that contract, you're going to have a period of time that you can do research. However, I find that knowing as much as you can ahead of time in terms of the level of work you're going to do. And you may personally feel qualified to make this estimate, right? Or you may be someone who feels like you need your contractor to come and look at this property to give you an idea of the scope of work that you're going to have to do. Now, here's why I like doing that stuff before you make an offer, but don't make it something that stops you from making an offer as quickly as possible. Let me set the stage for you. So let's say you find a property and you decide that in your look through it by yourself, you're convinced this could be a good investment. But there are some concerns you have, and there are some changes you want to make to overcome things that are limiting the desirability of the property, that aren't changes you're going to make because that's what you'd make if you were going to live there. They're changes that you're going to make just to make it more marketable, to make it rent for more money more quickly, right? My feeling would be if you can't get your contractor in there within 24 hours to look at it and give you a number and potentially give you a heads up to some much bigger problems, then go ahead and make your offer. But the reason why you'd want to do that ahead of time is it could dramatically affect how much you're going to offer on this place because you need to make the math work. But always err on the side of trading time for locking in the deal, right? Because that 17 days doesn't get calculated from the date you make the offer. That 17 days gets calculated from the date the seller accepts your offer. So go in there, make your offer, and of course, down the road, if you are in that 2-week period of time when you've got your contractor doing their thing and they come up with, hey, here's a $15,000 thing that you're going to have to do because it's safety related or whatever. It's something serious, a big deal. Now, of course, you've got the option to back out of the deal because you're within your limit to do research, but it also gives you a window to renegotiate the price of the property and just go to the seller and say, listen, my original offer was based on the idea that I wasn't going to be faced with this kind of problem. Maybe it's a foundation problem. Maybe it's a roof problem. Maybe it's a structural problem of some kind. But if you can get the seller to realize that's a real thing, then probably you can renegotiate and get a lower price. And also remember, this will be a lot easier if you're in a negotiation that is investor to investor. So, for instance, I have found a duplex I'm interested in, and so I'm talking, and the guy I'm talking to, the agent, is also the owner. So we're talking the same language. This guy doesn't have a huge amount of emotional attachment to the place. This guy's an investor. He gets it. So I can show him the stats on what is and isn't reasonable, and he can at least understand why I might come to a certain offer rather than his asking price, right? So if you're dealing with a single family residential home, odds are there are going to be emotions involved on the seller's side that wouldn't be present if you're dealing with a more investment focused property. Okay, so that out of the way, first buy, next rehab, next and get all that work done, rent it. And the idea here is that you are buying a place that is not up to where it needs to be to get the maximum rent when you bought it, right? The theory is that the rehab work you've done has increased the value of the property that you'd be able to pull equity out of it, right? So let's say it's a $100,000 property. You do conventional financing, so you put down $20,000. Well, if the work you do on it, you want to hopefully increase the value of the property as much as possible, so up to $150,000 or $160,000. But also the key here is you're not buying the best property on the street, right? You're in a position where you're going to make your money, as we've always said, when you buy the property, not when you sell it. You need to buy it right. So this may also mean that you may do tons of deals where you are offering below asking where it needs to be for you to be successful and getting a lot of turn downs, but that's okay. The persistence part is important to this process in order for you to finally push through and find something. And the point is, during this refinance period, you're going to pull out enough money. And in this case of our example of you had to come up with $20,000 in order to buy that first property, you're hopefully going to be able to refinance this where you can pull that equity out and buy the next property. You see? So it's sort of a snake eating its own tail proposition. So that's a basic rundown of the BRRRR strategy as presented by the folks over at Biggerpockets. I'm going to include a link to the story we're going to be talking about today, which covers real quickly BRRRR, but also covers a new element, a little twist to add to the BRRRR strategy that makes it even more effective. So don't go away. We're going to talk about that when we come back.
Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner, broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909.
Welcome back, everyone. We are covering some of the things offered by the good folks over at Biggerpockets. A lot of good conversations go on over there, a lot of good resources for you. And you know what? Once you register and become a member, it walks you through this process, forces you to walk through this process of, and I'm trying to look at it here for my own edification. Let me just jump through it real quick here. But once it puts you on a path to purchase, that is its entire purpose. It gets your location. It asks you how much you're saving per month. It asks how much you've currently saved. it starts with an overview, goes through finances, goes through income, goes through expenses, goes through appreciation, goes through deals, analyzing deals, education, networking, and then finally gives you a summary. Now, to my great shame, I have not even finished this path yet. I didn't watch all the videos. I kind of just jumped right into picking and choosing what seminars and things I would watch. That was my main reason to jump in. But let me suggest, as I am doing now and sort of now deciding to go through the entire process, that you do the same thing. It really makes you stop and think about what your goals are. They're going to ask you some very interesting questions. They're going to ask a lot of things that are later going to help you because other people are going through the same thing. Other people are doing the same thing in terms of making their choices. And as you make your choices, this is almost like an investor dating site. Because they're going to get all those 100 points of compatibility, and you're going to be presented with people in your area who dovetail with you, who maybe their interests maybe align, or maybe you've indicated you don't have much knowledge in this area and they have knowledge in that area, and you have knowledge perhaps in an area that they don't. So it's absolutely kind of doing the hand in glove thing in terms of finding folks that can work well with you, or at least should be able to have the skills in the pool together that would make you more effective in terms of achieving your goals. So take all that into consideration. This is good for everybody anywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. You don't have to be in San Francisco. You don't have to be in LA or New York or Miami or Seattle. Wherever you are, Butte, Montana, you will find people on this that are involved in investing that you can get together and learn from and potentially even work with on various deals. Okay, so now that we've covered that, let me go back to this story, which I will put a link to in the show notes, titled Forget BRRRR, Introducing the BARRRR Strategy for Investors. Now, this is a very interesting twist on the strategy. This one is going to add an element that is going to help you improve your moves in this area from a tax strategy point of view. According to this article, the BRRRR method maximizes use of capital, but it's actually a very poor tax strategy for a number of reasons. So to enhance the BRRRR method, I've added an A for a key step I feel the standard BRRRR method is missing. A stands for advertise. Now, why do you want to advertise? And BARRRR, it would now be buy, advertise, rehab, rent, refinance, right? And then repeat. And it's all about availability, right? Or at least how the IRS defines it. There are two key components to placing your property into service. And in order for work you're doing to be more deductible, it has to be in service, right? It has to be in service costs versus getting ready costs. The IRS says that when a property is ready and available for rent, it's considered to be in service. And once the property is in service, the costs incurred are considered operating costs rather than what the folks at Biggerpockets like to call get ready costs. So operating costs are deductible in this year, and the other costs are only deductible over a super long period, like 20-something years. So it means you can take advantage of these deductions right away. But if you never advertise the property for rent, you never make it, quote, available for its intended use. As a result, the property is not placed in service. So if you don't advertise the property for rent, the property is not deemed in service, and all costs incurred prior to the in-service date are therefore considered get-ready costs. And the tax advantages, the disadvantage of get-ready costs are spelled out in this article. Some of them I'll point out here. There are a myriad of rules surrounding repair and rehab costs. I won't go into great detail in this article, but I've written extensively on these rules in the past, both on Biggerpockets and my own blog, which I also strongly recommend. This is Brandon writing this. For this post, I'm going to explain the overarching strategy that pieces all the rules together to maximize your tax position. Get ready. Costs are costs incurred prior to the property being in service. These costs can include travel, research, inspections, gut rehabs, materials, labor, painting, etc. Basically anything that you can think of putting into a rental in order to place a tenant can be considered a get-ready cost. You want to minimize your get-ready costs, and we help our clients strategically plan their rehabs in order to do so. Suppose you made $27,500 $500 improvements to the structure of the property, we would capitalize that improvement, increase the basis of your property by $27,500, and then depreciate the improvement over 27.5 years. So each year we get to write off $1,000. So that's a bad thing. It takes you forever to write that off. The second but huge issue is with capitalizing and depreciating costs is that when you sell the property, you have to pay a tax referred to as a depreciation recapture. This is a tax assessed on the depreciation you have claimed over time. The tax ranges from 10 to 25% depending on your tax bracket. If you think you can avoid the tax by not taking depreciation, think again. The IRS will impute depreciation that you should have taken and tax you anyway. So very important, I think, to get yourself to the point where you are making it actively available for folks to rent when you're using this strategy from a tax standpoint. So unlike get ready costs, operating costs can be fully deducted in the year they were incurred. There will be no depreciation recapture tax to assess on operating costs when the property is sold because we wrote the costs off. We didn't capitalize and then depreciate those costs. As you can see, classifying costs as operating costs comes with two huge advantages. First, they fully recover the cost during the current tax year because they get to write it off. Second, they can avoid paying a potentially devastating 25% tax. So this is a great way to go. By advertising the property for rent prior to starting your rehab, you have met the IRS's available requirement. Now all you have to do to meet the ready part, which again is relatively easy to do. Let's say you need to rehab the kitchen in a new property. If you advertise it for rent prior to the rehab, you could deduct the countertops, cabinets, painting, labor, appliances, and potentially even the flooring. If you rehab prior to advertising it for rent, you'll have to capitalize those costs. I often tell clients that painting is always an operating cost unless you paint prior to advertising the property for rent. That's literally the only time in which you'd forced to capitalize the cost to paint. And then he gives an example and runs down some various ways to work with this. So you need to document this stuff. Obviously, remember, we're talking about the IRS here. Documenting the date your property is advertised is an important piece of the strategy. If you don't have any hard evidence that you advertised your property for rent by a certain date, good luck defending yourself during an audit. In order to document your advertisement date, you need to advertise via a third party. Think Craigslist or Zillow. You can also stick a for rent sign in the front yard and take a time-stamped photo. Regardless of how you choose to advertise, you're going to need time-stamped proof. Always remember to obtain proof. Additional success factors they add here in the article are always obtain itemized invoices from your contractors. I mentioned a $2,500 threshold as being one pertinent piece of the puzzle. Don't let your contractors give you invoices that aggregate all the costs. Instead, obtain as many itemized invoices as possible. A $10,000 expense can be broken down into 10 1,000 line items, which may be deductible. I'd also argue that this isn't just a tax strategy. It's a best practice for any business. So I'm going to suggest that if you get an opportunity, you're sitting in front of your computer, maybe you've got a cup of coffee and you're looking to pour some cool stuff into your brain, head on over to biggerpockets.com. Check out this article. Of course, you can first go to therebelbroker.com, check out the show notes for today's show and get a link directly to this. But I'll tell you, there is some great stuff here. If the very first thing that I think I jumped to was to the education section under strategies and started reading some of those articles. But I'd suggest you subscribe to their RSS feed. I think it's fantastic. I got to be honest, I subscribed to the podcast and sort of pick and choose the ones that I listen to. And I think it would make an excellent complement to this podcast. You could listen to them on the way home. You could listen to me on the way into work, and you'd be covering all your bases. There you go. It's the Quan of everything you need from real estate. All right, folks. I do hope that's been helpful. I hope that ends up being a great resource for all of you out there. And I look forward to seeing you. Make sure if you do go over and join BiggerPockets, look for me. I'd love for you to friend me or whatever the heck they call it. Connect with me, just so that we can find each other out there in the world outside of the show. And of course, you can do the same on Facebook, Google+, all those other wonderful areas if you're so inclined. Of course, you can also go to the website, therebelbroker.com, where you can join the Rebel Underground. Simply go to, there's a button now actually on the player. If you go to the player at therebelbroker.com, it'll say join the Rebel Underground on the thing that is used to play the shows. Simply click that to join. You can also support the show by clicking on the big red button at the top of the page titled Take the Survey to Support the Show. Do that, and you're not only helping me get the show growing and get it on a earning basis, but you're also getting yourself in a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card that we dish out once every month. And you know what? We have not done the October gift card, so we will do that. We will do that when? We will do that this Friday. At 5 p.m. Pacific time this week on the 20th. You know what? Let's put it through the weekend, because I know some folks listen to the show on the weekend. We'll make it end of day Sunday. So the 22nd. Head on over by 5 p.m. on the 22nd, Sunday the 22nd. At 5 p.m. I'll do the drawing. So head on over, click the button, do your thing. Make sure to use a real email address, because if I don't hear back from you within 24 hours after letting you know you've won on that email address, I move on to another winner, and I'd hate for that to happen. So head on over, take care of all that wonderful stuff. I think you got lots of cool stuff on your homework list today that'll definitely fill the brain with good stuff. So thanks again for listening, everybody. Hope we've added a lot of value to your march forward and real estate success. Thanks again for listening. Talk to y'all later.